She came in for a routine prenatal checkup. But from the moment she stepped into that hospital, something felt off. Cold stares, rushed answers, a nurse who wouldn't even make eye contact. And within 30 minutes, she wasn't in the exam room. She was surrounded by security. But they didn't know who she was married to, or who was about to walk in. When racism wears a lab coat, justice sometimes walks in with a badge. Comment the city or country you're watching from. We're shouting out our viewers from every corner of the globe. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago, Layla Johnson steps through the revolving doors on a chilly autumn morning. The grand lobby gleams with polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows, sunlight cutting sharp reflections across the floor. Everything is spotless and impressive, yet cold. Layla, wrapped in a soft wool coat, clutches her purse and walks toward the front desk. The hospital's reputation is unmatched, but Layla feels an invisible wall forming the moment she enters. She's 6 months pregnant. Today should bring reassurance, not anxiety. Yet the silence, the quick glances, the sterility it all makes her chest tighten. As she settles into a chair near the tall window, her phone vibrates. A text from her husband, Elijah. "Let me know if they give you any trouble. I'll swing by after my morning briefing." She exhales and texts back. "Just a checkup. I'm good. Love you." Around her, patients murmur. Staff rush past. Announcements echo faintly. The city outside moves fast, but Layla feels stuck in slow motion. Her fingers wrap tightly around the small notebook in her lappages, filled with symptoms, questions, and careful notes about the baby's movements. Time stretches. A nurse eventually calls her name. Layla rises, adjusting her sweater. The hallway is lined with framed certificates and generic art. The air smells of antiseptic. The examination room is bright, with medical equipment and a reclining chair. The nurse, curt and expressionless, barely meets Layla's gaze. No greeting, no warmth. She asks routine questions with clipped efficiency. Layla responds steadily, seeking empathy, but getting only checked boxes. Layla tries to meet the nurse's eyes, seeking a trace of empathy or reassurance, but finds only practiced neutrality. The nurse's tone is clipped as she asks routine questions about Layla's health and the pregnancy. Layla answers carefully, aware that every word is being evaluated. Her voice is steady, but inside she feels a swell of apprehension. The questions feel perfunctory, lacking the warmth and concern she had hoped for. It's as if the nurse is more interested in completing the checklist than in connecting with the patient before her. As the nurse prepares to leave the room to fetch the doctor, Layla's gaze drifts to the ultrasound machine in the corner. She imagines the moment when she will hear the baby's heartbeat again, see the flicker of movement on the screen. That hope for connection, for recognition of the life growing inside her, is what sustains her amid the coldness of the hospital environment. Outside the door, the distant murmur of voices continues, the rhythm of the hospital moving on. Layla sits quietly, the tension coiling inside her like a spring. She knows this appointment matters not just for her health, but for the future of her child. Yet the sterile walls and the subtle distance in the staff's demeanor remind her that this place, for all its prestige and promise, may not be a sanctuary as she had once believed. She takes a deep breath, steadying herself for what comes next. In this moment, Layla is alone, surrounded by strangers, in a place that feels simultaneously grand and unwelcoming. Her fingers tighten around the notebook in her lap, a small anchor in a sea of uncertainty. The city outside continues its hurried pace, unaware of the quiet struggle unfolding within these walls. The door swings open and a nurse enters, clipboard in hand, her expression unreadable. Layla straightens in her seat, hoping this next encounter will bring the warmth and professionalism she needs. But the nurse, Ms. Reynolds, barely glances up as she approaches, her tone brisk and clipped. "So, Ms. Johnson," she begins, eyes flicking down to the chart. "How have you been feeling since your last visit?" Layla meets her gaze evenly. "I've been feeling mostly well, though I've noticed some swelling in my ankles and occasional headaches." Ms. Reynolds raises an eyebrow. "Swelling is typical in pregnancy, but headaches can be concerning. Are you sure you've been following the care plan we discussed?" Layla nods. "Yes, I've been taking my prenatal vitamins regularly and resting when I can." The nurse sighs, shaking her head subtly, as if dismissing Layla's words. "Sometimes patients overstate their symptoms. We have to be careful not to overreact to common discomforts." Layla's stomach tightens. The insinuation hangs in the air her pain is exaggerated, her concerns unwarranted. She shifts uncomfortably on the examination chair, the weight of judgment pressing down. Ms. Reynolds steps closer, lowering her voice to a tone that borders on condescending. "You know, it's important to maintain good hygiene during pregnancy. Sometimes swelling and headaches can be linked to neglecting basic care." Layla's eyes narrow slightly. "I'm very careful with my health. I don't appreciate assumptions about my personal habits." The nurse's lips press into a thin line, but she doesn't back down. "I'm just saying, we need to ensure you're not making things worse by not following instructions." Layla's heart races. She feels the room closing in, the sterile walls suddenly suffocating. She swallows the urge to respond sharply, instead choosing measured words. "I'm here for a thorough examination. I want to understand what's happening with my body and make sure my baby is healthy." Ms. Reynolds scoffs softly, shaking her head. "You're making this more difficult than it needs to be. If you cooperate, the appointment will go faster." The nurse's dismissal stings. The power imbalance is clear. Layla is a patient, but also a target for skepticism and impatience. The undercurrent of bias is unmistakable, a silent message that her voice and concerns are secondary. Layla takes a deep breath, summoning her resolve. "I'm entitled to proper care and respect. I'm asking for a full evaluation." Ms. Reynolds' eyes flash with irritation. "Fine. But if you're going to be difficult, it might delay your appointment. We have other patients waiting." A knock on the door interrupts the tension. A doctor steps in, clipboard in hand, offering a polite but distracted greeting. Layla hopes this will change the dynamic. After a brief exchange between the doctor and Ms. Reynolds, Layla is asked to lie back on the examination table for a routine check. The doctor performs the standard assessments: blood pressure, heartbeat, and a quick ultrasound scan. Layla watches the screen, hoping to catch a glimpse of her baby, the flicker of life that reassures her amid the growing discomfort. But as the doctor focuses on the measurements, Ms. Reynolds remains close by, arms crossed, her gaze sharp and watchful. She interrupts the examination abruptly. "Doctor, I'm concerned Miss Johnson isn't cooperating fully. She's been hesitant to answer questions and seems resistant to following instructions." Layla blinks in surprise. "I've answered every question and followed all recommendations. I'm just asking for a proper examination." Ms. Reynolds steps forward, voice low but firm. "That's not how it appears. We have protocols here. and patients who don't comply can't expect the same level of care. The doctor glances between them, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Let's not jump to conclusions. Layla, can you tell me if there's anything specific you're concerned about? Layla swallows hard. The subtle accusations and dismissiveness have begun to erode her confidence. She forces herself to speak clearly. I want to make sure my symptoms aren't signs of something serious. I'm worried about preeclampsia, given the swelling and headaches. Ms. Reynolds scoffs under her breath, but says nothing. The doctor nods, making notes on the clipboard. Suddenly, a voice crackles over the intercom. Nurse Reynolds, please report to the main desk. Ms. Reynolds shoots Layla a last glare before leaving the room, her heels clicking sharply down the corridor. Left alone with the doctor, Layla tries to relax, but the tension lingers. The doctor's tone softens. I'm sorry about that. Sometimes the staff can be abrupt. We'll do everything we can to ensure you receive proper care. Layla nods, appreciating the reassurance, but still feeling the sting of the earlier interactions. She knows this is only the beginning of a difficult journey. As the doctor continues the examination, Layla's thoughts drift back to the waiting room, to the faces that passed without acknowledgement, to the subtle barriers of bias that seem woven into the fabric of this hospital. She wonders how many other women like her have faced similar treatment, dismissed, doubted, marginalized. When the examination finishes, Layla sits up, her expression resolved despite the unease. Thank you, doctor. I'd like to discuss next steps and any additional tests you recommend. The doctor nods. We'll review your results and make sure you get the appropriate follow-up. It's important to monitor these symptoms closely. Before Layla can respond, the door swings open again. 2 security officers enter briskly, their presence sudden and imposing. Layla's heart skips a beat. One officer steps forward. Ms. Johnson, there have been concerns raised about your behavior in the clinic. We need to speak with you further. Layla's mouth goes dry. Behavior? I don't understand. I've been cooperative and respectful. The officers exchange glances but remain firm. We're asking you to come with us for questioning. Panic flares within Layla, but she forces herself to remain calm. I haven't done anything wrong. Please explain. The officers don't answer, instead moving to escort her out of the examination room. Layla's mind races. The dismissiveness, the accusations, the sudden involvement of security, it all feels overwhelming and unjust. She knows she must stand her ground, but her voice trembles as she says, I want to speak to the doctor before I go anywhere. The officers hesitate, then one nods reluctantly. Fine. But this won't take long. As the doctor steps forward, Layla's resolve strengthens. She will not be silenced or treated unfairly. The fight for her dignity and for her child's future is just beginning. The fluorescent lights flickered faintly as the security officers guided Layla down the narrow corridor, their grips firm on her elbows. The sterile walls seemed to close in around her, the quiet hum of the hospital machines and distant footsteps punctuating the tense silence. Layla's mind raced, her breath shallow but steady, as she tried to process what was unfolding. She had come for a routine checkup, a moment to ensure the health of her unborn child. And now, she was being treated like a suspect. Just as they turned a corner, the heavy double doors at the end of the hallway swung open and Elijah Johnson stepped through, tall and composed. Elijah carried an air of calm authority that immediately shifted the energy in the space. His tailored suit fit impeccably, and his sharp eyes quickly took in the situation, the 2 security officers flanking his wife, the tension etched into Layla's face. "Is there a problem here?" Elijah's voice was steady but firm, commanding attention without raising. The taller officer straightened, momentarily caught off guard. "Sir, your wife was being uncooperative and delaying her appointment. We're just escorting her for questioning." Elijah's gaze hardened. "My wife is here for a medical appointment. What exactly are you accusing her of?" The other officer stepped forward, shifting uncomfortably. "There's been a report of suspicious behavior, sir. We need to verify some information." Elijah's jaw tightened. "Suspicious behavior? What does that mean in this context? I want to see the evidence." Layla's voice trembled as she added, "I've done nothing wrong. I'm only asking for proper care." Elijah reached out, gently taking her hand. "I'm here now. This ends." The officers exchanged uncertain glances, but reluctantly fell back, allowing Elijah to walk beside Layla. Together, they moved toward the security office near the hospital's back entrancia, small, windowless room that felt cold and confining. Inside, Layla sat on a hard plastic chair, her hands folded tightly on her lap. Elijah leaned against the wall, his presence a steadying force. The security officers remained standing, their posture less assured under Elijah's watchful eyes. "Sir," the taller officer began, "we received a report from clinic staff about your wife's behavior. There was concern she might be disruptive or uncooperative with medical protocols." Elijah's eyes narrowed. "Who made this report? And what evidence do you have?" The officer hesitated. "I don't have the specifics here, but we have access to surveillance footage." Elijah's expression shifted calm now, but resolute. "Then let's review it. I want to see everything from the moment my wife arrived." The officers nodded and moved to a small monitor mounted on the wall. Footage flickered to life, showing Layla entering the hospital, checking in, and waiting quietly in the lobby. The video then captured her interaction with the nursing staff, including Miss Reynolds, whose stern demeanor was unmistakable. As the playback continued, Elijah's gaze sharpened. The footage showed Layla answering questions patiently, her movements cooperative, even cautious. Then came the tense exchange with Ms. Keynes. Reynolds, the nurse's dismissive tone, the subtle but unmistakable gestures of impatience and condescension. Elijah watched as the nurse's attitude grew increasingly hostile, culminating in the moment security was called. The officers themselves appeared on the video, approaching Layla in the examination room, their demeanor firm but not aggressive. "Where is the disruptive behavior?" Elijah asked, voice steady but edged with disbelief. The officers exchanged glances, unable to counter. Elijah turned to Layla. "You did nothing wrong. This was an unjust accusation." Layla's eyes filled with tears she had been holding back. "I felt so helpless, like they didn't see me as a person." Elijah stood, moving toward the door. "I'm going to speak with the hospital administration immediately. This cannot be allowed to continue." The officers remained silent as he strode out, determination in his every step. Moments later, Elijah returned, accompanied by a hospital administratora, middle-aged woman, with a polished appearance but a guarded expression. "Mr. Johnson," she said briskly, "we're aware of the situation and will investigate, but security protocols must be followed for the safety of all patients." Elijah's eyes locked with hers. "Safety does not justify discrimination or intimidation. My wife was treated unfairly, accused without cause. I am here to ensure accountability." The administrator nodded, though her posture remained defensive. "We will review the staff's conduct. In the meantime, How can we assist Miss Johnson with her care? Lila, gathering her strength, spoke softly. I need to continue my appointment without further incidents. I want to be heard and respected. Elijah supported her words. And I expect transparency and fairness throughout. The administrator hesitated, then offered a tight smile. We will arrange for your appointment to resume under supervision. Elijah's gaze didn't waver. Supervision is not what's needed. Respect and equality are. This hospital must do better. As the administrator left to make arrangements, Elijah turned back to Layla. I'll stay with you every step of the way. You're not alone in this. Layla nodded, relief mingling with lingering anxiety. Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you. Outside the security room, the hum of the hospital carried on, but inside, a shift had begun. Elijah's calm power had dismantled the immediate threat, but the deeper struggle remained to confront the systemic biases that had brought them here. Together, they prepared to face the next steps, united and resolute. The fight for dignity and justice was far from over, but with Elijah by her side, Layla felt a renewed strength rising within her. Back in the examination room, Layla sat with a mixture of exhaustion and cautious hope. The sterile space that had once felt cold and unwelcoming now seemed tinged with the possibility of change. Elijah remained close by, his steady presence a shield against the lingering shadows of doubt and fear. The hospital administrator had returned, accompanied by the head of patient relations, a woman named Ms. Caldwell, whose demeanor was professional, yet tinged with unease. We've reviewed the surveillance footage thoroughly, Miss Caldwell began, her voice measured. It's clear there was a misjudgment in how the situation was handled. Ms. Johnson, we sincerely apologize for the distress caused. Layla nodded slowly, the apology meeting her need for acknowledgement but falling short of comfort. Thank you, but I want to ensure this doesn't happen to other patients. It's not just about me. Elijah stepped forward. Accountability is key. There must be a formal investigation into the conduct of the staff involved, particularly the nurse who initiated the complaint and the security officers who escalated the situation unnecessarily. Ms. Caldwell glanced at a folder in her hands. That investigation has already begun. We are committed to upholding the highest standards of care and respect. Layla's gaze sharpened. What specific actions will the hospital take to address systemic issues that allow bias to influence patient care? The administrator exchanged a look with Ms. Caldwell before responding. We are implementing sensitivity and cultural competency training for all staff. Additionally, we will review our policies to improve how concerns and complaints are handled, ensuring transparency and fairness. Elijah nodded approvingly. That's a start, but we expect clear benchmarks and regular updates. The community deserves to know that these measures are effective. The doctor who had initially examined Layla re-entered the room, his expression earnest. Ms. Johnson, your test results indicate that your symptoms require close monitoring, but there are no immediate complications. We will schedule more frequent checkups and provide additional support. Lila exhaled, relief mingling with the residual tension. Thank you. I appreciate that. As the conversation continued, the atmosphere shifted from confrontation to collaboration. Hospital staff acknowledged the failures and committed to change, while Layla and Elijah asserted their expectations for justice and reform. When the meeting concluded, Elijah escorted Lila to the front desk to reschedule the remainder of her prenatal care. As they walked through the lobby, the polished surroundings seemed less intimidating, the faces of staff and patients more approachable. Yet beneath the surface, Lila knew the work ahead would be long and difficult. Outside the hospital, the crisp air carried a sense of possibility. Elijah and Layla stood together, the city's skyline stretching before Thema, reminder of the community they represented and the change they sought. "We're not just fighting for you," Elijah said quietly. "This is about every woman who's been dismissed or doubted." Layla looked up at him, determination shining in her eyes. "It's time to make sure no one else has to go through what I did." They walked away from the hospital hand in hand, ready to take the fight beyond these walls, toward a future where respect and dignity are the standards for all patients. At a community health forum held in a sunlit auditorium of the Chicago Public Library, Layla stood at the podium, her hands resting gently on the notes before her. The room was filled with a diverse crowd healthcare professionals, activists, local leaders, and expectant mothers, each attentive to the story unfolding before them. The air buzzed with a mix of anticipation and solidarity, the shared understanding of a problem too long ignored. Layla's voice was steady, resonant with the strength born from her experience. "What happened to me at Northwestern Memorial Hospital is not an isolated incident. It reflects a systemic problem faced by Black women across this country, being dismissed, doubted, and dehumanized in healthcare settings." She paused, scanning the faces before her. Some nodded solemnly, others scribbled notes, and a few had tears glistening in their eyes. "The statistics are clear. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women. This is unacceptable." Beside her, Elijah stood quietly, his presence a pillar of support. When Layla finished speaking, he stepped forward. "As Deputy Director of the Office of Civil Rights Enforcement, I have seen firsthand how institutional biases perpetuate these disparities. We are committed to ensuring that hospitals and clinics are held accountable and that policies are changed to protect every patient's dignity and health." Together, they outlined the advocacy initiatives they had launched: community workshops, partnerships with healthcare providers, and calls for legislative reforms aimed at mandating cultural competency training and improving patient complaint mechanisms. Layla shared how her personal ordeal had galvanized her to become a voice for change. "I am preparing to welcome my child into this world with hope, but also with a fierce determination that no other mother should endure what I did. Our health and our lives matter." The crowd responded with a powerful, silent agreement that filled the room like a wave. After the formal presentations, Layla and Elijah engaged with attendees, listening to stories, answering questions, and building a network of allies committed to transforming maternal health care. Later, as the forum drew to a close, Layla stood near the large windows overlooking the city skyline. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling the subtle movements of her baby within. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but surrounded by community and strengthened by purpose, she smiled softly. This was more than a personal fight. It was the beginning of a movement toward equity, respect, and justice for Black women everywhere. And with each step forward, Layla knew they were closer to the day when every mother's voice would be heard and valued. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe. Thanks for watching all the way through. If stories like this matter to you, hit that subscribe. I'll meet you down in the comments. We've got a lot to talk about.